What's up and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan with your co-host Dave Martin Son. Bow, bow, bow. What's going on, dude?
Hi, this is Flume. Hi, this is Flume. What's
Yeah,
good, bro?
it's funny. Actually, we're gonna get to the Flume one in a second, but I thought that was a pretty interesting way to start that mixtape. And then I got a call right in the middle, and I was listening to it while doing something else. So I was like, huh, this is pretty neat that he's using like ringtones to like make a song. Didn't even realize till like the song actually started back up. I was like, oh, I'm a freaking idiot.
I missed
Uh,
it. That's funny.
yeah, not the best look for your guy, but you know what is a good look? If you hit that subscribe button on all of our Nostalgia pages, including YouTube, SoundCloud.com/NostalgiaPod, and on iTunes, and give us that 5-star rating and review while you're on iTunes. It helped us out. We appreciate it all. Dave, we've been talking a lot about the streaming wars. We've been focusing a lot more on I think we're really interested in how big IP plays a part into the streaming wars of the future. Things like Lord of the Rings are coming out, and all the prequels to Game of Thrones, so to speak. But Apple today had one of their announcements, which they do this biannually.
Yeah, something
Maybe
like that.
annually?
I don't pay attention to them because I don't use Apple products. But yeah, they come up. It's weird. Apparently, they actually announced a lot of hardware like last week. They kind of just did
Huh.
some refreshes. Didn't really talk about that much, but they had plenty to talk about today because I listened to the whole thing, and by golly, the first hour was painful. Let me tell you.
A lot of Apple doing some self service to itself.
All right, so yeah, we're talking about the Apple TV Plus. Explain all about what it is, all the
Yeah.
shows and stuff. Right? That's why we're talking about this. That's what we're interested in, as you were saying. But before that, they talked about Apple News. They talked about Apple Arcade. They talked about refreshes to Apple TV and Apple channels. And Apple as a company never fails to pretend they invented something that they didn't. And this time it was with Apple channels, which is cool. It's you're subscribed to ESPN Plus, you have normal cable still, you got Netflix, you got it all, right? Well, you can watch it all in this one place and you can pick back up, it'll keep track of all your progress together. It's all there, one combined watch list. Sounds great. Except you can do that on Amazon Prime right now, dog. You didn't invent this, so stop presenting aggregation like it's some gift you're giving the world. So it's like
Yeah.
they always find a way to cut their legs off with their messaging, and only so many people even recognize it. But God, it just annoys me so much.
I saw a tweet where someone was like, "I love how Apple's walking us through like no one in their life has ever seen a streaming service. This is what the interface looks like. This is how
Yeah,
you would move around and select a function. Like who doesn't have Netflix that all of a sudden is like, oh, Apple TV Plus. Like holy shit, I need this. Like
yeah.
come
So
on, man.
you use the cursor probably with your dominant hand if you want to be quick. Like,
Mm.
relax, guys, we get it.
Give us a bit of a rundown about Apple TV Plus though.
Yeah, so the thing is, and if you saw my tweets, I'm disappointed in the announcement for a few reasons, which I'll get to, but we already knew about all these shows. I mean, they've been the casting announcements, the hirings, all this has been in the trades the past year plus. We've known about these shows, and then we've even known that they shot them already, almost all of them. Um, so we knew what was coming immediately, but the questions were about what exactly is the service, how do you access it, what does it cost, when's it coming out, all that stuff, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you might be thinking to yourself, why do I need another streaming service? Why do I care? I have too many to watch. I have enough shit to watch as it is, which is totally correct for everyone. Thing that's interesting about Apple is that they have enough money to make enough original content at a rate that Netflix, Amazon, Disney can do. So they are truly a new player once they choose to operate that way. So that's why I'm so interested in what they're going to do. Thing is, they didn't actually announce anything we didn't already know about. All these shows, the Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon morning show, the Jason Momoa space or fantasy show, the Steven Spielberg show, the M. Night show, the J.J. Abrams show.
Mm-hmm.
We knew about all this already. It all sounds great. I'm sure most of it will be awesome.
Sure.
but we don't know when they're coming out. We just know the service is launching sometime in the fall, and it's ad free. You can download offline. Cool. We don't know how much it costs, and we also don't know if there's any kind of interfacing with how iTunes downloads work or movies you already own, the whole store in general. There's just a lot of questions about everything Apple does,
Mhm.
and it is, as I said, Apple should be spending enough to be a big player. But right now, if they have all these shows from well-known auteurs and big actors, are they just HBO without all the other movies and back catalog that HBO has? Like, I don't know if you can get a lot of people to sign up with that, even if on a surface those shows sound exciting. So I was pretty disappointed. One big question I had was answered though, and you can watch this new Apple TV service on this new Apple TV app, which will be coming out on smart TVs, Roku, and Amazon Fire Stick. So you can access this on non-Apple products, which was something I was concerned about. But then you think about it, it would make no sense for them to not
Yeah.
open this up to as many people as possible. But ultimately, it was pretty underwhelming announcement because it was pretty bare bones.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the people were kind of aware a lot of this was coming out. I think the sheer size of how many shows they're producing, shows and movies, and the people behind it. I mean, one shout out Steven Spielberg, like taking down Netflix and then like standing out there for Apple TV
Yeah,
Plus.
fuck out of here, man.
Just a really interesting move. But I mean, we already knew about the morning show, which has Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Aniston. But they had, I think, Chris Evans was there, and he's doing a thriller show of some sort.
He wasn't there,
it,
but he does have that show. Yeah.
I think he was actually in the crowd, like he was
Oh,
sitting and
was he?
watching. Was
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
which is definitely interesting. They had what in the promo they showed Sofia Coppola, and
Yep.
she's doing a movie with Bill Murray, I believe, which is pretty interesting, reuniting. The Chris Evans show is Defending Jacob, by the way.
There's a
By
Brooklyn Prince show. She was, of course, the
mhm.
young lead on the Florida Project. They got a lot of stuff. Um,
Yeah,
but it's just
pretty interesting too.
the overall future. Like, we know what Amazon is doing. We know they dropped $250 million just to have the right to spend more millions of dollars on Lord of the Rings, right? And
Mhm.
we know how they operate movies. They might be changing. Now we have a good sense of how Amazon operates. Netflix, we know Netflix just spends more money than anyone and makes more stuff than anyone. We know that, and we know
Mhm.
Disney dominates the traditional film space and also has the most valuable back catalog. We're getting that later this year. We know what the other guys are doing, but Apple,
Mhm.
I'm still curious how long it's going to take them to scale up because the streaming wars are truly a game of scale. Um, but even if it's going to take some time, Warner Media, who owns HBO now, and we know they already want to scale up. You got to compete, and I think people like CBS need to step up, and Viacom, and
Mhm.
Comcast, of course. Like they all know it's all about the money game, and Apple, of course, has enough money that they can do it slowly if they so choose. I guess I
Mhm.
just kind of want them to flood the zone because that's how they would dominate or attempt to get to that point.
Yeah, two other interesting pieces to this. So the Disney acquisition of Fox and all that IP happened last week,
Yep.
and I believe Hulu is going to be a big beneficiary of this because I think that they're going to be getting a lot of properties from that in some way. I remember reading that somewhere where they're going to be receiving some new shows or movies on
Right.
there.
Well, yeah, Disney will have, I think, 60% share of Hulu, so controlling, and there's
Right.
rumors they're going to try and get Warner's 10%. So they control Hulu versus how many Hulu shows are actually owned by Hulu versus made by someone else. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, definitely a valuable piece. But it also kind of takes Hulu off the board in a sense because Hulu used to be owned by everyone, and now it's truly just owned by Disney.
Right. I wonder if they would ever consider doing something like making Disney Plus a part of Hulu. Like you buy Hulu subscription, then if you add this on top of it, something along those lines. Regardless, I think that that's pretty interesting. Then Netflix had a site wide increase in subscription per month. I think it was only like $1 for most people. But I think
Right.
people are feeling the crunch of this, and people are really gearing up to be providing more content, higher levels of content as well. I guess I just wonder, like, when does this reach like a point where it's unsustainable? Because if you think about it, like it's early now because we don't really know what Apple TV is going to look like exactly, but we have kind of like the bare bones, like you already kind of wonderfully laid out. But if I have to subscribe to Apple TV and Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, like when am I? Who's actually going to be able to afford all these?
Yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to if you care about live events enough. Like,
Right.
you can't have a traditional cable service if you're gonna get all these streaming services. Obviously, I use an antenna for like the network, so I can actually watch most live events legally for free. I
Mm-hmm.
recommend everyone do that if you live in a city where you get a good signal. Um, but yeah, I mean, the thing, like, you have to scale up to give people a reason to stay buying. I mean, there's stay subscribed. Clearly, no one's ever going to stop subscribing to Netflix the way they continue to make zeitgeisty shows out of thin air. Think of shows that aren't even that good, like You. They just catch
Mm-hmm.
on, and like Netflix can just have moments, have weekends that no
Right.
one else really can capture that way. Amazon, despite spending a lot, not as much as Netflix, obviously having Prime and their shipping and all the other Prime benefits, I think is probably what keeps most people subscribed to them, at least for now. They're hoping
Mm-hmm.
Lord of the Rings is that true, IP,
Yeah.
and HBO is definitely not as popular as either of those, but has core fans because it just has a stamp of quality unlike anyone else. But then, I mean, CBS All Access, AMC Premiere, all these smaller things, I just
Mm-hmm.
don't see how, especially traditional cable channels, I don't see how they can survive. Luckily, FX is part of Disney now from the Fox deal, so
Mm-hmm.
FX will be safe,
Right.
and we love FX. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think, I mean, people are going to make choices, and having Disney show up where you put that whole library, the Disney Vault's coming back. Every family in America that has streaming services will have Disney Plus. It's non-negotiable. Like, they're just going to go for it.
Right.
I mean, families are used to getting forked over by having to buy movies outright or rent them all the time. They're used to paying a lot, so Disney Plus is going to save families money. Um, and yeah, I think Apple needs to spend a lot because people are not going to automatically sign up for them. There's only so many
Yeah.
dollars, only so many hours. It's fascinating.
I have to imagine Apple's strategy has to be something like if you own an Apple product or buy an Apple product, something like that in the fall, like you get access to like or like a discounted price to their
Mm,
service to
like
just
Apple
get
Music
people
or
in.
something.
Yeah, and then you can from there once they have people who like the shows and have a connection to the streaming service will want to pay more when they can up the price in a year or two. But I have a feeling that a lot of these places have to start doing these bundles because like if you're gonna have to pay for like for example now Spotify and Hulu are connected together, you're gonna start seeing a lot of things like this, and I wouldn't even be surprised if like Disney made a move to make a partnership with Spotify since they now own Hulu. Like why not just kind of keep that bridge going where they're like,
Right.
here you get Spotify, you can get Disney Plus for a discounted price or something like that. So it's going to be a lot of that sort of stuff moving forward. It feels so unsustainable as they did. Like this arms race just gets higher and higher. The stakes are
Sure.
so high.
Well, especially like someone like Netflix, where their whole business model is on getting more subscribers, and most of their growth is out of the U.S. at this point. But they spend $13 billion a year right now. Like, that's a huge amount, and maybe they will eventually scale that back once they have enough content they own. We've talked in the past about how they
Yeah.
have been canceling and just not investing in shows that they aren't making themselves, just because I
Mm-hmm.
think long term it's not worth their time if they can actually own and control something forever in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm.
But I think your point about the Hulu thing, I think specifically the Hulu Spotify bundle, which I take advantage of, I have a feeling that will go away once Disney uh, introduces the new Hulu, just because I feel like they'll just say we don't need this bundle. We'll bundle with ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. Why would we bundle with Spotify? So
Right.
I'm expecting that to go away. So take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of it while you can. Uh, Another thing with
Mm-hmm.
Apple, though, and I think this kind of leads up to their path to scale. They had that deal with A24 they signed last year. People throw around, what if they just bought A24? Would be
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Um, the other hand, Sony, with Fox leaving the space, Sony is probably the most vulnerable of the major studios. Probably Sony and Lionsgate, Sony and Paramount.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, People have long suggested, especially last year, Variety had a great piece about it. What if Apple just bought Sony Pictures? And like that was their true inroad into Hollywood. that would also give them a lot of a backlog, you know. So things to think about.
Definitely crazy, and it just makes the foresight of Netflix, I think, so impressive because they're seeing these established companies that are going to start these rival streaming services and already going to have all this IP and established movies that they don't have to pay for the rights for. So there's like that ingrown profit. So the fact that Netflix has been spending all this money to develop these award-winning and recognizable shows, just their business model is very impressive to me. How they've moved into the space and kind of been the pioneers of it, but also been like really thinking strategically about how they grow.
And the thing, one last note about that is people made a big stink when they paid $100 million to keep Friends for another year, right? Mm-hmm. And like you think about that on the surface, like, oh well, they're spending to keep someone else's thing that's owned by Warner. Why would they do that? We know that the Friends, The Office, those are like the most watched shows in the world, like bar none, you know?
Yep.
But the calculus with that is twofold, I think. One, you're just keeping more people subscribed to Netflix as you make more things. Eventually, if you get rid of Friends, they'll be like, well, I can't get rid of Netflix because they have all this other stuff I like too. That's the plan with Friends. It's just it's basically just advertising, right? But also, the key takeaway is, why did Warner Media take that cash when they could have just had Friends themselves? You could just put Friends on HBO or this new service you're going to work in with HBO. They didn't do that because they're not ready to do it. It just shows you how far ahead Netflix is.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Buy the best shit other people have.
That comfort TV, man. Anyways, I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this a lot moving forward. So we don't necessarily need to ride it into the ground at this moment. Why don't we jump to what you referenced at the beginning of the show? Flume. Hi, this is Flume mixtape. When we talked about Flume back in 2016, I think we both really liked his album Skin. And I think he became an artist that was more on our map, so to speak. I don't think we're like standing for him in any sense, but he's a DJ I think we both enjoy and found to be unique in a lot of ways. Did this mixtape, it kind of came out of nowhere for me. Did it meet the expectations you had of Flume post Skin, or were you a little disappointed?
Yeah. I think the thing with me with Flume is that that first album, the first album in 2012, the second album, Skin, that was first one we talked about in the pod. I was a little disappointed by it just because he came up as a DJ that does experimental sounds, and he got really big off that. And Skin, like the biggest hits of Skin are Never Be Like You featuring Kai, which is a lot of commercials, and Say It with Tuvlo, right?
Yeah,
those are songs that are kind of like old Calvin Harris to me. So I was kind of worried that Flume would just kind of go more mainstream, just go with the flow, maybe not go full Marshmello, but just kind of get back to the middle a little bit, because I mean it was successful for him. Why not do it? But he didn't do that, I don't think. I mean, the Skin companion EPs that he dropped after the album, I thought those were okay. There's only a few songs between those two, but this new mixtape, which also came out of nowhere for me, yeah, like the early drops, the glitch hop influence, it's not Calvin Harris, it's not Marshmello, and that's exciting because, again, like I think I mentioned this recently, like EDM has kind of crested as like a whole scene in the mainstream. Obviously, there's still massive DJs, and Flume himself's a big festival draw. But yeah, I was a fan of this. I thought it was cool. He didn't. He kind of got back, I guess, to what made him popular in the first place, which is cool.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I didn't find this to be super. I don't know if it grabbed me that much. It was very inventive, which is kind of what I come to hear from Flume, is how is he going to do something different, something that's going to be ear catching. And I felt like it was pretty middling. Like he was trying some things, but he wasn't going in like totally one direction or another. And he probably could have put a little more stank on the song, so to speak, just kind of like adding a little bit more to him. But what I was most impressed by with this album was just how it flowed together so well. It transitioned from song to song. Yes. A lot of times I would look down and it was like 3 songs past, and I was like, wow, that really just like blended together so well, which I think is so impressive to do when, like you said, you're doing so many different things like those early drops, or like trying to bring in all these different kinds of sounds and influences. And the fact he could make something so cohesive is just a testament to his art, that he is an artist in this way. And I don't say that about a lot of DJs nowadays, but he's definitely one that I consider an artist.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, like, you look at this as a bunch of songs. Most of these songs are under 2 minutes. It's a lot of short songs, but
Mhm.
it's one of those few EDM listens that actually flows like a project. And yeah, whether it's
Yeah.
super influential, I think it's kind of besides the point. It's just actually like it's a good EDM product, which is kind of rare these days, you know.
Right.
But I mean, what were your favorite songs? I really liked the song with JPEG Mafia, How to Build a Relationship, because I thought like those are like funky ass beats mixed with fire bars from Peggy. So I really like that one. But again, most of it floats.
Yeah,
So I can get down with anything.
JPEG Mafia, I thought really brought it on that song. Like I definitely perked up when I heard it. I was like, oh, like this is a good verse. That was one that stood out. I really like Jewel a lot, and I thought especially the way it flowed from High Beams into Jewel, and then I don't even know what to say about the name after of the song after Jewel. I have no idea what even to
Symbols.
call that, but it's just a bunch of symbols. Yeah. I thought that those three in a row really were kind of when I hit the groove of the album, so to speak. So,
Yeah, what the fuck are these things, dog? It's got a house, a rectangle, a plus, two S's on top.
yeah,
Like, I'm surprised they have that like coded into like Spotify and stuff. You know?
right. Yeah. Although I guess Bonnie Iver does like has some of those weird symbols on his songs too. So, um, yeah, no. Overall, I don't know if there's anything like super standouty like from song to song, but just overall the cohesiveness and the him trying new things and having it work really well is what stood out to me most about. Hi, this is Flume mixtape. Anything else about this one before we move on?
I noticed he's still just putting these out on an Australian independent label. He never signed with a major, and I think that's pretty cool. You know, considering how successful he is, he didn't, go to Atlantic or anything like that.
Absolutely. Why don't we move on to I don't know, Shane Lewis, lesser known or more known than Flume? Been around longer for sure.
Not as famous,
Not
right?
as famous, yeah. She came up with Rilo Kiley back in the late '90s. Then started doing some solo albums on the side. Now primarily a solo artist. Hasn't done an album with Rilo Kiley since 2013. I believe.
Yeah, I think they disbanded or something, right?
Yeah, and she's this is her fourth solo album on the line. Were you even aware of Jenny Lewis prior to?
No, yeah, I wanted to just punt the ball to you on this one. I was not really familiar with her that much, but as a singer songwriter, in the indie space, I thought this was actually quite a good album, and I actually by the end I thought I was actually like really really moving, really bumping. So I was actually pleasantly surprised. I mean, I saw there was a lot of hype about it, but I didn't know what to expect, but I thought it was good.
Mm.
But I mean, I saw you tweet that this was one of the 4 best albums of the year thus far in no order. So what made you feel that way?
Yeah, first of all, my Twitter game not that strong, and that was actually meant to be saved as a draft that got sent out, and I was just too lazy to delete it. So I had more albums I wanted to add, and I'll probably add to it as we go. But telling to myself a little bit.
No Solange.
So yeah, Jenny Lewis. Yeah, no, I meant to put her on there too, and that was one once didn't make it out. But I was like tangentially aware of Jenny Lewis, mostly because she dropped the Voyager back in 2014, and I think that was kind of the last time I was really like going to festivals and like checking out the artists that I wasn't aware of on the lineups. I'm trying to remember what the song was off Voyager that I remember. I remember Acid Tongue from her first one. I really enjoyed that song. Yeah, none of the songs looking over it really stand out to me, but I remember that her sound was a lot more like country-ish for what I remembered coming to this. So I was like, we'll see. But she dropped 3 singles. So Head's Gonna Roll, Red Bull and Hennessy, and Wasted Youth. And I think those are like 3 of the most perfect singles to drop off this. Not only because, especially Red Bull and Hennessy and Wasted Youth are very like catchy songs. I mean, Head's Gonna Roll is also, but it's more of like a slow building song. But it really gives you a taste of what Jenny Lewis does well, which is she writes these really meaningful, really thoughtful songs and is able to like use melody and hooks that kind of keep you coming back to them. And I think not only on this album did she kind of level up in terms of catchiness, but she used the piano more in this and it was basically like Jenny Lewis meets like Lou Reed in a way, or Casey Musgraves meets Lou Reed a little bit in this, and I think that really adds an element to the palatability of it, so to speak. Like I think it's a lot more enjoyable to listen to. I think the easy comp is like Casey Musgraves, only because it's a female kind of country sounding singer songwriter. It's not quite country, but incorporates other sounds. But she doesn't have the vocal. I don't know. She's not as interesting vocally, I think, as Casey is, or is just talented overall. But still, this album, I really liked it. I thought there was a bunch of songs on here that really stood out, and she talked about a lot of really interesting stuff. She went through a breakup of her partner of 12 years prior to this. And then she actually stayed with Annie Lennox in New York City, St. Vincent in New York City. And I think she
Annie Clark,
St. Vincent helped produce. Sorry, Annie Clark, not Annie Lennox. So, and she also lost her mom prior to this too, who was a lounge singer back. I think it was like Las Vegas or something like that. So that's kind of how she got this year. Both her parents were. So, just really interesting that she had a lot to say on this. And I mean, I know you texted me talking about how On the Line, the song, stood out to you a lot, but any other songs on this that really stood out, or anything about just her style in general that you liked?
Yeah, I thought in the beginning, for those first few tracks, you mentioned a few of them. Along, I also like Do-Si Do. Those first few tracks, where I think most of the singles popped up, just kind of, I think maybe the Casey thought came to mind. Honestly, I kind of started thinking of Florence Welch, which is weird because like Florence Welch obviously has a lot of ballads and like big showy songs. They're not really that similar, but I don't know why, but she kind of popped into my mind. Maybe it's because they have the same hair color. That popped up for me early. But just like the thing I always harp on with this kind of singer-songwriter music is it engaging for me? And it was. I thought, like, obviously she's a talented writer. I think that's been known for fans for a while, but it's actually engaging music. And I think just whether it's rock, like there's a lot of guitar on this, or it's just her voice is actually compelling. So it usually kept my attention, which is good. I think On the Line, it's like in the last song. By the end, I was like, I think this is kind of like a nice culmination of the whole record, because I think that song really moves. But yeah, overall, I was quite impressed, given I did not have any expectations.
Yeah, I mean, we already put On the Line on our playlist, but check that out, Nowstalgia Best of 2019. But I would probably also recommend people listen to Hollywood Lawn, which was probably my favorite, like, slow plotting breakup song of the whole thing. I really found myself coming back to that one a lot. Yeah, overall, just really impressive. Jenny Lewis. I also wanted to get that tweet out because I fully recognize that probably within the next 3 months, I'll have 5 different albums that are in contention for best album. We got Schoolboy's got to be coming out probably May or early April, or middle of April. Anderson .Paak. We got Tame Impala just dropped their first single. They'll be out soon. Vampire Weekend. I mean, dog.
The National, if you care.
I care. I care. I'll listen to them. I got to catch up on them though. Black Keys. I mean,
yep.
Damn, a lot of good music about to come out. So I just wanted to give Jenny a little shout out before we move on. So definitely check out On the Line. I think Dave and I both give it a thumbs up. Something I know we give a thumbs up to: Jordan Peele. First movie, Get Out, international sensation, nominated for Best Picture, won for Best Original Screenplay. Jordan Peele, the new Hitchcock, some people are saying. And his second film, directed, produced, wrote, Us. I mean, Dave, did it live up to the hype for you?
It did for me. I think we can get to whether it did for everyone else who saw it. But yeah, I thought Us was we're going to talk a lot of spoilers about Us. Yeah. And I think spoilers are quite impactful around discourse with the movie. So I would really avoid them if you haven't seen the movie yet. But if you want our spoiler-free take, we both recommend the movie, even if you're not a horror movie fan. I'm certainly not a horror fan at all. I did not find it
terrifying,
chilling or anything like that. I watched it. I wasn't covering my eyes the whole time. So recommend it. Go see Us. But we're going to spoil the shit out of this because there's a lot of things to dig into. And I think it's weird because going in, Get Out's this huge success, right? This huge word of mouth success, huge financial
Mhm.
success. Only cost $5 million, right? And it was also an unexpected success because Jordan Peele used to be known as the sketch writer and performer with Keegan Michael Key, Jordan Keegan Peele,
Mhm.
and most people thought Key was going to be more successful just because he was seemed like he was the better actor, which he probably is. But Peele comes out of nowhere with this really tight movie that's this incredible social commentary and also kind of reinvents horror for a broader audience. Like there's so much there, and of course he was
Mhm.
rewarded both financially and critically at the Oscars. And then having Us, obviously there's a lot of hype going into this, and well, I think it's kind of foolish to compare Us to Get Out directly because I feel like we only ever compare the second movie to the first movie. We don't compare like director's 10th movie to their second movie, like
Right.
like
Yeah.
like we're not going to compare Peele's third movie to anything, right?
No.
But it's probably not as good as Us, but or as Get Out. Us is probably not as good as Get Out just because I think it's perhaps a little messier, it's a little broader, whereas Get
Mhm.
Out was much tighter in both its message and its
Right.
storytelling. But I still found a ton to chew on with Us and really liked it. But what about you?
No, I mean, I highly recommend Us. I think it's a fantastic film, and what a testament to Jordan Peele. Because we talk about Greta Gerwig, and I don't want people thinking about the trash on Greta Gerwig. I think she's phenomenal, and I can't wait for Little Women.
Little Women.
Um, but in Get Out, he was so thoughtful about almost every single choice he made. There's symbolism upon symbolism in that film, and he's even talked about it himself that he's put like a lot of little Easter eggs in there as like he wants people to go back and rewatch and see things and take more from the film with every watch. So his movies aren't just you go, you enjoy it and you leave, or you don't enjoy it and you leave. It's you go and you leave and you think about it and you try to understand what he's trying to say. And it's a commentary. Whereas it's not like Lady Bird, which is a commentary in a way, but it's not one that necessarily sticks with you past maybe the first couple days after you see it. It's something that I think a lot of times um, after watching it will kind of hit you again, but I didn't find myself thinking about Lady Bird the way I thought about Get Out, or I've been talking about Us with people because, especially with Us, he, like you said, he's approaching these large themes and these large ideas that aren't necessarily easy um, to
Get into a
get
movie.
across. Yeah, get across on film, and he does it really, really well. And I think he didn't do it perfectly, and there's some times when it falls short, and we'll probably talk about that. But I think it's so awesome that he's taken horror, this genre that people just trash, and he's made it into an art form again, or at least it feels that way. And I know that there's been artful horror movies I just haven't seen because I'm not going to see them, but this
Mhm.
is one that Jordan Peele's got the season ticket or season pass at this point for me. Um, why don't we start with the performances? Because I think it's going to be hard to really talk about the themes before we get into the performances and moments that stood out. Lupita, I mean, phenomenal, right?
Yeah, somehow her first starring role, which I would not have guessed if I didn't read that. Um, Obviously, she's been on it for a while, ever since 12 Years a Slave. Off that, she gets, cast in
Black
Star Wars
Panther.
doing mocap, right? Black Panther, of course. Like,
Yeah.
she's and voice work in Jungle Book too. Like, she's a stud. She's great. But this
Uh-huh.
is definitely like she's never been able to asked to do this much. Obviously it's a dual role, like a lot of other actors, but yeah, I think it's just transformative, but also she really carries a lot of the scenes when she's like kind of actiony. So I think it's a quite the multi-layered performance and awesome to see.
Yeah, and her and Elizabeth Moss, my thought leaving was just like, how did Jordan Peele find two of the most interesting looking people that can do so much with their face? I mean,
Mm.
uh, each of them are playing their tethered person and their above ground person, um, and I think they both are able to like get across so much like emotion, like so much creepiness with just like their looks and that like blank stare that Red has throughout the whole thing, and the way that like Lupita delivers the lines and like looks around, it's just so creepy. She does so much with uh, without really speaking. Is so impressive. Do you think that this is Oscar worthy?
Uh,
It's hard to say so early.
yeah. It's not the kind of performance that usually gets nominated, so I'll probably say no.
Mhm.
Um, but it's really good. That's for sure.
Definitely, definitely really good. Winston Duke, hilarious, just
Yeah,
absolutely hilarious.
the thing, like Winston Duke, obviously, I didn't know about him until he was M'Baku and Black Panther, of
Mhm.
course. And this
Yeah,
was obviously much more different. I was actually happy to see that. Like he's just being comic relief. He's just being funny. The audience avatar at times too. And it's like, oh well, M'Baku, bringing it. Let's go. But yeah, I thought, especially in the early going, like he's really like pushing the plot forward, but also he really drives a lot of like the much needed levity that Peel injects script,
yeah.
especially in the later acts. So yeah, I thought he was also very well cast. And the kids, I mean, I obviously didn't know about these kids either, but I thought they were both great. Again, playing dual roles, being asked to do a lot. But yeah, I thought they were awesome. And Elizabeth Moss, as you said, definitely an inspired choice for sure.
Yeah. Shahadi Wright Joseph, gonna be Nala in Lion King, a little young Nala in Lion King.
Right.
She's a child star to watch. I think she's gonna be taking off next couple of years after this performance. But the funny thing is, I think Evan Alex, who played Jason, was even better than her. Just crazy that they both were so good, and played their creepy counterparts so well too. Must have been an interesting role to get as a kid to have to play these two people, you know.
Hmm.
Anyways, um, scenes that stood out to you, or moments that stood out to you from the movie. I mean, the first act is a little slow. I felt like.
Yeah, it is. The thing is, I think ultimately, like my appreciation of the film is the trailer does not actually show you that much. Like the main twist, probably I think the best scene in the movie when she realized, oh wait, there's more doubles, there's more tethers, there's white
Right.
people tethers. What?
That's when it takes off.
Like that like blows everyone's mind. Like I don't know about you, but I had a theater that usually I try and go at like non-prime times to see movies just because I hate people that talk. But in this movie, obviously because I'm kind of a coward with horror, I'm like, you know what, people are going to talk. I don't mind that much. It'll probably keep my nerves down. So I went. It was like 5 o'clock on a Friday, and it was or 4:40, but like five when it started. It was basically sold out, and people were roaring at the funny parts, and like people like yelped. I think it was an oh shit, like audible oh shits and stuff. But when the white tethers came, Elizabeth Moss, Tim Heidecker, and the twins, like people lost it. I thought that
Yeah.
scene. I mean, from there, I think the movie just gets like super electric, just because you don't really know what's coming. Um,
Right.
but you mentioned the beginning's a little slow. I think the beginning again, it's a lot of the trailer, but like the it's a lot of table setting for things you learn later, and I think the value of a rewatch would really benefit, especially in the beginning. You're just going to see things.
Hmm.
That first scene where you see all of, like the retro references, like the right stuff, and the Hands
Yep.
Across America, all those very tactically placed pieces of ephemera. Right, obviously that's great. But even like the scene where the "I got five on it" scene, which is in the trailer, which becomes
Yeah.
a motif, which you don't expect. So I think honestly, like I like a ton of scenes, but I think ultimately the white people. Tether's coming. And then I also really like the opening title card when it zooms out on the rabbits and it's a black rabbit, a bunch of white rabbits, and then you see more black rabbits. But I thought that
Yeah.
was really effective.
Yeah, it was really effective, and reading a little bit about why Jordan Peele picked the rabbits because he feels like they have such blank stares, and the way he like zoomed so far in on their eyes at first,
Right.
I really got that sense like, oh, this is like kind of creepy to see a rabbit up close like this. No, I agree. The first act's a little slow, but it's effective because it really does, like you said, all the table setting, and you get a lot of payoff in this movie. And I think that's something Jordan Peele does really well as a director is he gives you payoff for a lot of things. Like thinking about like the end of Get Out, like you pretty much get payoff on everybody, especially like when Brie Larson's character, or not Brie Larson, Allison Bree's, Brian
Allison Williams.
Allison. Jesus Christ, long day.
Definitely
Um,
not Brie Larson.
no, definitely not Brie Larson. But when she's killed at the end, that's or you think she's killed. It seems like maybe.
Right.
Uh, I think that you get a lot of payoff at that point. Yeah, when the family comes at first, it's such a creepy scene, and you kind of expect it because you saw it in the trailers, right? But like Winston Duke's, tethered person Abraham is like this big like brute, and you're like, what's going on here? Like he's just gonna kill him right here, but he's like, Winston Duke's like dragging himself down to the water. You're like, where's all this going? And then it really takes off, like you said, when he kills Gabe on the boat, and then it cuts over to the Elizabeth Moss family, and those guys waste no time. Like Red and Abraham and Umbre and Pluto are like toying with Lupita's family, and then the other one's just like boom, dead,
Dead.
2 seconds.
Yep.
Yeah, but that scene is so phenomenal. Not only like the good vibrations thing and the Ophelia, whatever, like switching to fuck the
Yeah.
police, which is just
So good.
hysterical. But just like how creepy those twins were, like the whole thing was just
Yeah.
unbelievable. Um, and then they obviously show up and Lupita gets pulled in. It's just next level at that point.
Yeah. In the moment, I was like, "Ah, man, they skip Easy's verse. If I have the police and come back in and it's MC Ren," and I'm like, "Ah, dang.
Yeah.
Oh well." But yeah, the Ophelia, nice little stab at Amazon Alexa. That was cool.
Yep.
You see, I think as we get to the third act with us, we learn more about the existence of the tethers and their underground infrastructure and how they came to be and all
Mhm.
that, and the big twist at the end with Adelaide. That's where, like, I think it's I don't want to call it divisive, but that's where people are, I guess, branching off in terms of the discussion about the film, because there's people that are just harping down like the logistics of the world, right? And there are people that are like, don't overthink it. It's about the metaphors, which is where I'm at. Um, and I guess I'm just kind of off put by like this convo. It's like, why are you focusing on this? This is a movie that has a awesome message that can be interpreted so many different ways, and you're just asking me, um, about like the geographical trackers and the tethers and whether they actually move around when someone moves above ground. Like, why? Who cares? You can
Mhm.
pick holes in a lot of horror movies, a lot of good horror movies. That's not the point. Like, Else is actually
Right.
bringing more to the table. That's way more interesting than that.
Mhm.
So that part of
Yeah.
the discourse is kind of annoying me right now.
It's actually funny, and I'm going to jump to a part, but at the end, Jason's giving Red slash Adelaide that look in the car as they're driving away, and there's a lot of people speculating what that means. Like, does he recognize that that's not actually his mom? That his mom is one of the tethered, like come to the top. Is he one of the tethered that's come to the top? And there's a theory on Reddit that
Mm.
uh, Jason is one of the year before had like burned himself, and the other or the tethered had switched himself or something like that. And this person's like, no, but the daughter is this way because she got more of the dad's DNA, and because Red was the tethered, Jason got more of her DNA, and that's why they're closer. And I was like, we're really getting into like the weeds of like genetic makeup with these people and like speculating on that's why one kid is more. I was like, I can't get in the weeds this much, man. I got to pull back at some point and just enjoy it. And it's obviously just like it's a part of the horror movie trope, some of this stuff, but um, I think overall the metaphors are the most interesting thing to talk about. And I think there's obvious classism, the people who are above, the people who are
Yep.
below, rising up, so to speak. I think that one's pretty obvious. Duality of humanity is where I think I start to get really interested into this, because there's so much symbolism of it throughout, like that duality. The scissors are an obvious one, how they're like basically like two parts make a whole. Um, the rabbit, how the rabbits, how there's so many, like they procreate and there's so many of them, and blah
Mhm.
blah. Michael Jackson was one that I found to be a really interesting symbol in this. That you have Peel talked about this, how Michael Jackson back in the 80s was like this person who was so much fun, and it's just like alive, but he was also made Thriller, and the Thriller music video actually really scared him as a kid. But also thinking about Michael Jackson as that the person who in the 80s was this black symbol, and then uh had all the skin surgeries and things like that,
Mhm.
and he kind of became two people in a sense as a public figure.
Right.
um and even now, I mean that's even more poignant with the documentaries coming out. What did you think about that like metaphor of the duality of humanity throughout the movie?
Yeah. Well, I think another thing is it Peel spells it out early. Uh, the little kid's like, "It's us," and then when they're
Yeah,
talking to Red, she's like, "Who are you?" We're
America.
Americans,
Yeah.
right? So right there, they're giving you a few of them. Um,
Mhm.
what I mean, I think the red jumpsuits looking like prison outfits definitely stands up, and I was really just thinking about like class and I guess how race factors into that. And again, like you're bringing in what you expect of Peel after seeing Get Out with you, so you're kind of already thinking in terms of like these societal commentary of some sort. But it's not really so much about race, or if it is, it's much more top level, like about
Mhm.
society as a whole. Whereas Get Out was much more focused on like uh, race relations, especially with like wealthy liberals, right? But us, I started thinking about um, I really started thinking about the American things, but I mean, obviously they lead you there. But you know, it's funny because like I was trying to think like what's like the intended uh, metaphor, like what's Peele's real message, right? And I think for some people it's an issue. I don't know if there is one. I think it's a little messy in that regard, where you can take it in so many different directions and plausibly explain the meaning. And I think that's
Mhm.
ultimately where the genius is, that there's so many
Yeah.
metaphorical explanations. Um, I saw some people throw in religion. That didn't really come up to me when I was watching it. But I think capitalism,
Mhm.
uh, classism, as you said, haves and have-nots, that sort of thing. Something that actually jumped in mind real quick when we were watching the movie is, remember when Adelaide goes back into uh, Elizabeth Moss's house and the twins' body is gone, it's
Mhm.
off the table? I was like, oh wait, are they getting framed for white people murder? Was this like some plan to frame the black family? And then no, the twin was just alive. That's all. So that was
Yeah.
totally not happening. But that immediately started going through my head. Totally wrong.
um, one thing or another interesting theme that I think came out of this is like nature versus nurture, so to speak. How they talk about the tether are these clones that the government made, and they couldn't replicate the souls, and they noticed that they were kind of these like bum clones, so to speak. So they just abandoned them underground, but they still somehow continue to like procreate and basically replicate the lives
Those
they're having.
rabbits.
Right. Uh, and I think it's really interesting to think about the idea of like nature versus nurture, because Adelaide and Red are perfect examples of that. Like the environment that you grow up in influences the way that you see the world, the way that you interact, and you even see a little bit of that with like Jason and with his sister, and they're opposites. Whereas Umbre, who is the daughter's opposite. I forgot the daughter's
Right.
name, but she's smiling all the time. She's happy, whereas the daughter is kind of like a grumpy teenager in a sense,
Nose
and
in her
just kind
phone.
of like
Yep.
exactly. Or how Winston Duke's Gabe is such a goofy guy, but like his tethered is so serious
Right.
and like this just big brooding brute. Really, I think well done. I think that metaphor comes across really well. Also, something I didn't mention before, but the camera work in this is a lot better than Get Out. I feel like, and there's so many scenes that like stood out, but the one I keep thinking about a lot is when Red has Adelaide against the glass in their first interaction, is like pressing her face into that glass tabletop, and you just see it cracking slowly, and then
Yep.
you hear Jason and Pluto, and she's like, "One of yours, or that one's yours," and she's just like, "Ah," and it's like gets up. I like started giggling so much that I thought it was such a beautiful shot, and then to have it like end like that was so
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. I thought also the mirror scenes look really cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot going on when you're filming that shot. So that was cool. Yeah, I guess similar to where I think I kind of landed on for the meaning. It's just like the duality of each person. There's two sides of everyone. I think that's sort of what I started thinking of. And I think once you get to the end and you realize like the final twist, I think that's sort of where I settling on. But the fact that you can apply to society in so many different ways is so cool. And of
Mhm.
course, along the way, it looks amazing, as you just said.
Yep.
And it's both funny and scary at times. So quite the movie, man. I'm really happy that it is so successful. In fact, it's the highest grossing original film live action since Avatar. The highest grossing movie ever. So
An opening
quite
weekend is
this
crazy.
70 million first weekend, third highest horror opening period. Quite the success. Only cost $20 million. So
Peele's on a real heater. He's got the CBS All Access Twilight Zone coming out. Two more questions. Did you see the final twist coming of Red and Adelaide?
right before, with 30 seconds to go, I started to piece it together in my mind. But I wasn't thinking about that way. I just kind of, I thought they were some kind of like shadows, as they were saying, some kind of like phantom person. I didn't think that they got twisted, literally got switched like that. And then I
Right.
started thinking, going back, and it's like, wait, we thought that Adelaide had repressed Santa Cruz because it was traumatic, because that's what happened when she saw the person. No, it's the other way around. Like, it's really kind of mind blowing how like it worked like that. Then you really think of, oh wait, so the real Adelaide, she's the only one who actually talks. That's because she actually was above the surface for some time, and it would make sense that she was the leader. And is she the good guy actually? Are there any good guys? Are there any bad guys? Like,
Yep.
it really just makes you totally rethink and refresh everything you just watched and everything you thought you were believing. So really cool twist. But no, I didn't really see it coming.
Yeah. I kind of sniffed it out right after she started talking, and I noticed that the other ones couldn't. I was like, "Huh, that's strange. That she's the only one that can talk." But that honestly, it wasn't a big deal to me because I still thought the movie was really enjoyable. I thought the choreography too. They highlighted a lot that she was a dancer, and it's such a powerful moment in that scene where Red's trying to kill Adelaide, vice versa. I thought was really well done. So, any last thoughts before we wrap up for today?
Don't get bogged down in the world building. Just think about the meaning, because that's what's going to last with people. But yeah, definitely evangelize for the film. I think
Yeah,
this is, I mean, not that it needs the help, obviously, judging by the box office we just mentioned, but yeah, it's definitely the best movie I've seen so far in 2019. Obviously, still early, only a handful of good stuff's come out so far, but yeah, I was definitely pleased for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, go see it and comment your favorite theories or what you think us means on our videos. We really want to have a discussion around this. We really love the film. What we got next week, Dave?
So next week is quite busy. We'll see how much of this we can bang out and actually get to. But on the film front, the Dumbo remake, reimagining from Disney comes out. Review embargo hasn't broken yet, but I've started to see some good comments, so that's nice because again, I don't know how much of a blockbuster this will be. The Beach Bum from Harmony Korine with Matthew McConaughey comes out, and I think that was at Sundance, and just looks trippy and weird and like a cool adult, film a la Spring Breakers from Korine. So interested in that for sure. Then on TV, the rest of Hannah on Prime comes out on Friday. We talked about the premiere. Check our review out on that. And then the season premieres on HBO Sunday night of Barry season 2 and the final season of Veep. And then, of course, Billie Eilish is dropping an album on Friday, one of the biggest artists in the world, and also Lana Del Rey. And those are two artists that we're not super high on, but we'll still talk about them.
If you want to get crazy, Dave, we can get crazy.
We can get crazy.
See you next week.